Okay, today our challenge is to run through 10 techniques in under 10 minutes. We're going to start with the most basic beginner techniques, and by the end we're going to be finishing with the most advanced techniques. Get the running B-roll.
So technique number one is foot swaps. So there's 4 ways we can do this. The first one is a roll-on, roll-off technique. So really nice and slow and accurate, good for those small footholds. The second one is the tablecloth, the swishiest one. So you'll put your other foot straight on top of the foot on the foothold and whip it out. Really good when the feet are small and you've got to be quick. The third technique is the hop. So this is probably the most intuitive way. It's nice and fast. Good when the footholds are big, but can be limiting when they get a bit smaller. And then the fourth one is the smear around. So you'll take your other foot off, walk around maybe the wall or a volume, so you end up with your other foot on the small hold.
And the first flag we're looking at is your basic flag when you're square on. The key thing here is pressure going through the foot which is not on a foothold. This is going to keep you in a solid base between your feet and your hips. The next flag is the outside flag. This helps you bring your weight over your hips and is going to go behind your other leg. Again, the key thing here is that foot which is flagging has pressure driving into the wall. This stops the rotation and stops that barn door effect. The final key flag is the inside flag. This is going to be a little bit like the outside flag, but it's going to come through the inside of your body. So naturally this will work best when your hips are a little bit further away from the wall. Again, the same with all flags. You need pressure driving into the wall to stop that rotation. The pressure helps you stop twisting and can help you drive towards the next hole. Quick tip if you want to practice your flagging is set yourself climbs or choose climbs, but make sure you only ever use one foothold at a time, so that forces the other foot to flag and explore the inside, outside and open flagging positions.
So the third technique we're going to cover is drop knees and twisting. This is a really good one for getting a bit of extra height on the wall and keeping your weight over your feet. So the key here is to drive your hip into the wall, either by using an outside edge or a drop knee. The hand you want to move, that hip is going to be the one that gets close to the wall. And one of the biggest mistakes we see is not getting your hip close enough or not twisting enough. So you really want to get your hip touching the wall.
So this one is the rock over. Essentially here you need to get your foot normally relatively high, and what you're going to do is pull with your heel or your toe, engage that hamstring and get your hips over the foothold. Your aim here is to get your center of mass over the top of the foothold if you can, so that most of your weight is going through that foot. This is particularly useful if you need to drive your weight across the wall and get a hold that's far away. If you're on a big foothold, often you can take literally most of your body weight through this, and if you're not on an overhang, you should practice taking your hands off and sitting in this rock over position to make sure that you've got all of your weight going through that foothold. Next up, we've got the Gaston, and this is where you're going to take a hold which is opposing you or facing you. Generally, these will be harder the higher up they are. So if you find them set in the gym where they're quite high up, they're trying to force you to be into quite a strenuous position. To get your weight into the Gaston and to make the position easier, you generally want to drive up through your legs and bring it in towards your shoulder. Once you're in this lock-off position and not extended overhead, you generally can feel more comfortable here, and that's when you'll release the hand and drop in or make the next move. If the Gaston is really quite far at the extent of your reach, sometimes you might even use momentum to try and drive into the hold so that you can catch it in this deep lock-off position, meaning that you're not catching it sinking out and unable to engage the shoulders.
So next up is the dyno. So this is a full-on jump where your feet and your hands leave the hold. So the key points with a dyno are to drive through your legs. So we're not pulling in with our arms too much at the start. We're getting all our momentum from our lower body. We're then going to drive our hips into the wall, use our arms as levers and release at the last second. So this can feel a little bit intimidating at the start. So a really nice way to build into it is to just aim to tap the hold you're going to and then control the landing and get a feel for the movement. So the next technique is the heel hook. So this is a really good way of using your legs almost as arms. So there are a couple of ways we can use these. One's like the rock over, so to pull your weight over your hips. And the other is on like steep terrain and you'll use your legs as hooks. So the key here is to really engage the hamstring and the glute and pull your heel towards your bum. So you'll want to think about the way that you place your heel. So sometimes on a smaller hold, you might use the outside of your heel, whereas on a bigger hold, you might sit on the bottom. Remember to point your toe down, as this creates the hooking profile and helps pull your weight over your foot.
With toe hooks, you need to get two muscles involved here. First is going to be your shins. You should be actively drawing your toes towards your shin. This creates the profile, which is going to hook onto a hold. The next thing, which is also really useful, is being able to pull your knee towards your chest. This gets your hip flexors involved, and this is what's going to help keep the tension on that foothold. However, in a lot of cases, it's really hard to use a toe hook in a scrunched up position. Sometimes that heel hook is better for that. So what we'll try and do with toe hooks in a lot of cases is actually sink our hips away from the hold, so we're toe hooking on a straight leg. This means it's mostly your shin doing the work and not your hip flexors. Another thing to experiment with when you're trying this technique is the orientation of your foot. So if you have it externally rotated, meaning your heel comes towards the wall and your toe faces out, this is going to be more common on smaller holds where they don't come far away from the wall, or you might have the heel facing away from the wall, toe going directly into the wall, which is going to be more common in steep overhangs or on erect lines.
So the next technique is the bicycle. So this is quite similar to a toe hook, but we're adding a toe on top of the hold to create the tension and opposition. So with one foot on top and one foot underneath, we create a clamp. So this can be a lot more secure than just a toe hook or just a foot on a foot hold. We have one foot on top that can drive us towards the next hold, while the other one keeps us into the wall. Sometimes we might even use a heel hook as the hook. This can be useful if the holes are tight into us and it's a smaller space.
The pogo takes our top spot in this video because we think it's actually one of the harder techniques to master. It's going to require you to swing a leg, generally quite a straight leg as well, in the direction of movement you want to travel. By swinging the leg, as this comes to a slow, you're going to let your hips travel with that momentum, and this will either carry you across or up to the next hold. If done correctly, it will basically look like you're floating to the next hold, and is actually really quite effortless if you can get the momentum right. You're going to see this technique become really useful when you have only one foothold available and it's quite offset or in line with your hands, so that you can't push in the direction you need to travel. It's also going to be really useful when you need to travel in big distances and you need that momentum to carry you. It's also really useful for even basic climbing. You'll see people do this with just subtle movements of the leg and hip to move effortlessly through different holds. In most cases, this is instead of swapping feet, so it saves time if you're trying to look for a faster pace of climbing. This is our top 10 techniques from beginner to advanced. However, if you have any techniques you think we've missed in this video, let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.